welcome back to Morbid Movies with Dom and Mary. We are going to be covering Fright Night. This is another one of Mary's picks. I actually enjoyed this more than I thought I would. It's campy, it's ridiculous. Some of the acting is terrible, but the makeup is amazing. Mary, why are we doing Fright Night today?
Because I wanna. Now, I actually, Fright Night's one that I didn't see it until I think maybe a year or two ago because I had an online friend who was obsessed with it and I wanted to know what was up. And I just really enjoyed it. I think it's a fun movie. It's not necessarily high cinema, but it's enjoyable.
Yeah.
And I'm also I like watching Chris Sarandon play an absolute rat bastard. He's so good at it. So
Yeah, no, very, very good, very, very cool. I think Jerry is probably the most in-depth character in this. I mean, one of the things that was interesting in my research, Mary, and obviously going off what you put in your notes, there's a lot of kind of lore to this. You know, there was a novel as well, a book that came out after the movie, which I didn't know about until watching it. There's also a comic book series. I know that there's been a lot of inspiration, which we'll go into in a bit. I know that Castlevania took inspiration from it. So there's, even though it's a kind of campy, kind of ridiculous film, it certainly has
it
carried a
has a
lot of
legacy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It certainly carried a lot of legacy.
Hmm.
I enjoyed it, and again, you got to admire Chris's dedication with regards to the makeup as well, because one of the things that I really loved about this, especially if you take into account the modern vampire films, sort of we're in 2025 at the time of recording. Actually, I felt like a lot of the makeup for this was pretty fantastic. Actually, do you know what I mean? Like there was,
Yeah, well, and they spent like the budget of the film was 9.5 million dollars, I think, and they spent a little over 10%, like about $1 million on that on just effects for the vampires, which is a pretty large portion of your budget to just put into the special effects, and it really does show because it's like this was made in 1985 and they're great practical effects. A lot of what they did, like the makeup's really good.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's one of the things I absolutely enjoy about it. And I also just love like doing the research. Like you said, like Chris Sarandon really he threw himself into
Yeah, yeah.
like this role and building the lore. Like it talked about the director Tom Holland, the American director, not Spider-Man. He had all of the cast write like a 1 or 2 page bio about their character, and from what I've read, just Chris really went nuts with it.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, absolutely. One of the things, just to add to your point, Mary, one of the things I really admired upon reading your notes was that you know, I think it was a combination of the director and Chris, both wanting him to have like these layers to his character.
mhm.
The character of Jerry actually longs for a normal existence, and I think the director had wanted his love interest to look like the character to look like an actual real life form or interest of Sarandon's, which I thought was
Hmm.
really interesting, so that he had that emotional connection.
Definitely borrows a lot from like that Dracula lore where, Dracula was obsessed with Mina because she represented his lost love as well. As you can definitely view this as a kind of loose modern retelling of the Dracula story in that sense. Yeah, I think it added a nice dimension that he wasn't just obsessed with Amy because she was
Mm.
there. There was
Yeah,
like a lot more depth to it because of that.
absolutely. And the character of Amy, again, just quickly going back to the makeup, I think it's probably the best female vampire makeup I've seen.
Hmm.
Personally, for me, I've not seen better female vampire makeup, so I think visually they really nailed that. As we talked about it, there was a couple of, again, it was so campy and so ridiculous. I mean, we'll keep to we'll try and structure this and these episodes as we try, we tend to waffle on, both you and I in our neurodivergent ways. But I think that when I ask you about your favorite scene in a minute, I think something needs to be said about how, again, I'll keep using the same phrases, it is silly, it is over the top, it is ridiculous. I mean, my favorite performer in this is, Stephen Jeffries, of course, as, Evil Ed. And, ridiculous, actually, not necessarily great acting from anyone here. particularly, except for I will absolutely hold Chris Sarandon up as fantastic work. But I
Yeah.
wasn't a huge fan of any of the acting greatly. But in terms of a performance, Evil Ed and some of his facial expressions and the crying when he gets the cross on his forehead and all this stuff, just over the top. Very campy, and I guess knowing you as I do, that's probably why you like it so much.
Yeah, I feel like Evil Ed, it's over the top, but there's something about it that feels familiar because I feel like every school has the kind of the kid who's just like a little bit off, and kind of gets bullied for that. Like there's something very familiar about like the way he just doesn't quite jive with how you expect people to act normally. Is I There were kids in my school like that,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah,
hard
absolutely.
like, and I remember it's like most of them were picked on, but at the same time they were also just very hard to deal with
Yeah,
too because they didn't act in a way that you could expect. So
yeah,
I feel like he kind of captured something with that and the way that that made him more vulnerable to basically being, for lack of a better word, seduced into vampirism by Jerry Dandridge, because he was already an outcast and an outsider, and there was this promise of, gaining power that
yeah.
was presented to him.
Yeah, absolutely. So some interesting layers there, and again, I think that needs to be said, of the director Tom Holland and of the actors in this, particularly again, not to go over, but Chris's dedication, Sarandon's dedication to the role. Other interesting elements of this, and I really wanted to like Roddy McDowall more as Peter Vincent. Of course, the
Mm-hmm.
name relates to Peter Cushing and Vincent Price as a tribute to two sort of horror icons of the time. So there's an interesting layer there. There's also little things, not to spoil too much, of course, but there was an alternate ending which I would have preferred, which I was reading about, where that character Peter Vincent, there's the kind of idea that he could have been a vampire the whole time. In the end, at the end, when he's on the TV, turns into a vampire. That was meant to be like an alternate ending. That's not the
Mm-hmm.
ending that we had, in Fright Night. But I thought that would have been more interesting than what we got in this version.
Yeah, in fairness to him, like I enjoy his character, but I've also watched the sequel, and I feel like Roddy McDowall gets more screen time and gets to shine significantly more in the sequel. So I kind of tend to conflate the character with both movies run together. Because yeah, it's on rewatching this, I hadn't seen it in a while. I was like thinking about like, oh, I think he's great because I'm remembering the stuff from the second movie. He's a little bit flatter in the
Yeah,
first one, I think. That I also feel like he doesn't get as much time on screen as the other characters, so he has less opportunity in a way.
yeah.
But I'm also just very heavily biased in my love for Roddy McDowall. I think he's adorable. So
Fair enough. But again, some of the facial expressions and some of the movements I thought were, pretty kind of, again, very camp, which can be really good. And I
mm-hmm.
think if you take this movie with a pinch of salt, it's very enjoyable. But I think if you look at some of the kind of weird facial expressions, when he's running away or when
Yeah.
he's trying to sort of when he's afraid, particularly when he's afraid of Jerry, when he's kind of doing the scenes where it's Jerry versus Peter. Those scenes can be quite like over the top. I mean, I go
I
on.
think some of that's intentional too, like because he's supposed to be an actor who's ridiculously camp in the film.
Yeah.
So and yeah, from what I was reading, he took a lot of his inspiration for his reactions from the Cowardly Lion and the old Wizard of Oz movie. So it's like it sort of makes sense in that context, but it
Yeah.
definitely does add to the campiness of the film quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely, and its charm and clear legacy, which is obviously the reason why we're sat here talking about it today. We'll do sort of key facts from your side in a minute, Mary, because obviously you did a lot of research, and I don't want to kind of sort of dominate the conversation. I think just going back to the point about it being camping over the top. I mean, as much as I'm criticizing, or why I'm sort of yeah, I guess I am. I'm trying not to sound like an ass, but I am criticizing the acting of Roddy McDowall here. He is involved in my favorite scene. I think my favorite scene is that kind of ridiculous bit where Jerry turns into the bat. and then you've got you've got him strangling. You've got Peter Vincent, trying not to die and trying not to get bitten by the bat, and just kind of ridiculous. And it kind of didn't look like a bat to me at one point. It looked a bit weird, just
Well,
a little bit strange, I thought. But definitely
so
my favorite scene.
the bat, I think part of the reason it looks a little strange is when they were initially filming the scene, Roddy McDowall accidentally cracked the skull of the prop, and it took him about 2 days to repair it because it was extensive damage. So I think it's a little bit weird because they had to patch the bat back up after it accidentally got broken. So that might be part of it. But that is a really fun scene,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
final showdown.
I mean, again, so I have no other word for it. So over the top, so ridiculous, but again, there is a charm to that, and I want to acknowledge, I've never starred in a film like this. I've never written or directed a film like this. So as we, we are here to give our thoughts and opinions. Hopefully I don't catch any hate in comments or wherever for that. I appreciate the creativity behind it. I did think some of the acting was ridiculous and kind of not in a good way. But you got to love the sort of hammer horror, I believe is the term of it, the kind of over the top, stuff. But yeah, I mean, that was probably my favorite scene. And again, props to Evil Ed for also being over the top. I think Stephen Geoffreys is my favorite actor. So, Mary, your favorite actor and favorite scene, please.
Well, I think my favorite actor in all of this is Chris Sarandon. I just, really think that he nailed it overall with his part. He's just so good at like playing that kind of like sexy but evil and maybe like with a little bit of sleaze added in kind of part to begin with. And I think my favorite scene is that when the kids leave his house and he's stalking them through the street and then into the nightclub, and that just like the tension of that scene is just like fantastic for me. I really enjoyed that. And the way he just rolls into the club in like the most designer sweatshirt I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, yeah. Again, very, very kind of. I can see why a lot of films have taken elements of this, and I can see where this has obviously been inspired again by Dracula, as you allude to. I can see why this film has such a legacy. I think one of the things that's interesting, and I would encourage people to do because I've had a quick look at it, is go into the book because I think there's more, there's a little bit more detail in it. I know it is sort of directly inspired by the film, and also the comic books I mentioned. There's the first two are the film basically retold, but then it actually has more stories. It actually has more from these characters. They kind of continue on their journey. So there's actually a lot more kind of to the story of Fright Night within the sort of continued comic books and also the novelization. And the novelization was by John Skip and Craig Spector. So I thought that was pretty cool. We've pretty much sped through that, Mary. I mean, is there anything, because you had a lot, again, there was a lot of notes. Is there anything before we kind of wind it up that you want to sort of give a shout out to? Any kind of particular points you want to bring up? Because there was, again, we've covered the fact that it was inspired by Dracula. I was very impressed again, the sort of the Castlevania, the obviously wildly successful Castlevania video game franchise, taking inspiration from it as well. Little facts like Vincent Price was offered to be a part of it as well, but he was obviously at the later part of his career, health-wise. But yeah, there's lots of little facts here, really good facts that you found. And is there anything that you want to add
Yeah.
and really make sure we get in?
Well, I mean, one of the other things I found interesting when I was just looking at the legacy is the green slime in the film. Um, was actually one of the direct inspirations for the green goo that they use on Nickelodeon shows, and I'm not sure if they still do, but in the 90s that was a big part of like the whole Nickelodeon brand was actually directly inspired by the green slime that was in this film towards the end, which surprised me. I didn't expect the origin to have been a campy 80s horror film, but That delighted the 90s child in me quite a bit. So I wanted to shout that out.
Is Fright Night 2 worth watching? Obviously, we've just focused. I just watched the first one for this
I
podcast. Is there a chance of us doing it down the line? Is it?
I think that it would be fun to do it down the line. Is it's again, it's still campy, it's still over the top. I think it's actually a little bit more funny than this one in some ways. Like they added more comedic elements to it, and like I said, I think that Roddy McDowall gets a little bit more of a chance to have fun in that movie with his part. So I think it would be worth doing. You know, it's obviously these are just kind of in the category of fun, campy popcorn flicks. So if you go in with that mindset, I don't think you'll be disappointed. But like I said, you know, I'm just mostly just here for Chris Sarandon. I love a good sexy evil vampire part.
Yes, yes, you do. As long as I've known you, you've been into sexy evil vampires, Mary. So good on you for staying consistent throughout your life.
I know what
Mary,
I like.
absolutely, as you should. If anybody has seen the film or anybody's read the comics or the book and wants to drop a comment, please do, because we'd love to hear from you. There's no point in doing this channel without your engagement and your time. So thank you. If you keep coming back to Morbid Movies with Dom and Mary, we appreciate you very much. Mary, anything to add? What are we doing next, and where can people find us?
Well, next I thought we talked about checking out Long Legs, which I haven't actually seen, and you suggested it. So I figured, you know, that could be our next
Cool.
little go around, and
There's a
we'll do
lot of
one.
there's a lot of research in that. So yeah, there's a lot
Mhm.
of because there's a marketing campaign. It's the most. I'm not a big horror fan, as you know. I get super scared watching horrors unless they're campy and ridiculous. Then I kind of laugh, which is why it's been refreshing doing this podcast because you don't tend to push for super scary horrors. It
No,
tends to
I
be.
love I love campy horror
Yeah,
comedy the best. So
it tends to be, and I mean, this is definitely not that. But I think it has, it's more psychological. It's more Longlegs comes from the sort of Seven school of psychological scares.
well,
Um,
we'll check it out, and it's your idea. So if I don't like it, I can yell at you for a change.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, I'm very keen to see what you think. I've got some ideas as well. Maybe like I say, maybe we'll alternate, and because I've got a few ideas. But Longlegs was just the most interesting film I'd seen marketed in the last few years. A lot of people, I think, felt like it was very well hyped in terms of the marketing, but then didn't follow through. I thought it did. I think Nicolas Cage is exceptional in most things, and again, he has his own. I think you'll find his character to be very campy and over the top. So, anyway, Longlegs is my pitch, and that is the next one we're going to be doing sooner rather than later because I'm in Bali most of August. But yeah, we'll be back soon. Mary, you always see us out. You always talk us out. I don't know why I've
Okay.
taken
Yeah.
over. Didn't somebody have
Well,
a go at me a few episodes ago for being like the strong over the top British voice talking over the Americans? So maybe I'm just
I'm
sticking
I'm just
towards
so
stereotypes.
accommodating.
Yeah, I'm just
I
sticking
still
to
have
the
to do our
stereotypes.
contact info before we get out of here, though. So let me get that out before I forget. So you can email us at morbidmoviespod@gmail.com. We are on Instagram at Morbid Movies Podcast, on Twitter at Morbid Movies Pod, TikTok at Morbid Movies Pod. Well, it's morbid.movies.pod. And we are on Blue Sky at Morbid Movies. So you can find us there. We post sporadically. But if you contact us, you know, with a movie suggestion or just to let us know we're awesome, we'll appreciate that.
Absolutely. We want your movie suggestions because it takes us out of our spooky little box. So yeah, bring it on. And thank you so much, Mary, for your time. It's always a pleasure. These are half catch-ups and half podcasts. So it's good to see you. And thank you very much. And what do we say?
Keep it spooky.
Yeah!